that currently reside in our prison system. I have to believe that those would be relatively easy pickings to try to go back and find out where their money is and to get it back. But can you give me just a broad $3,000 to $5,000 view of where that stands currently? What do you believe that number to have started out being? How much of those dollars have you been able to recover? And everyone tells me it eventually ends up at the Attorney General's office for those cases that end up being turned over for prosecution. That's for another conversation down the road here, but just a quick overview of where that all stands right now with regards to your agency.
Thank you, Senator. And as always, I appreciate the question. And over the last couple of years sitting before you, I always appreciate the opportunity to give you an update. And thank you for your leadership for those questions and for the interest, because the department, emerging from the pandemic response, has continuously built on improvements, and as I mentioned in my opening remarks, the strategic investment and the focus on what the lived experience and the lessons learned during a worldwide pandemic crisis at that level, but the improvements that we put in place during that time in response and the investments made during that money and those emergency opportunities, I would call them, and building from that where we are today. And I can invite our Deputy Director, Mireya Hurtado, who oversees those programs, but I will just say that the focus on recovering and recoupment, we have maintained our resolve to continue that. We refer to the Attorney General's office and work with the federal OEIG, our federal partners in our benefit control payment area. We have developed new tools that Mireya can touch, as well as this to give some examples of the progress. But it's many internal changes and improvements around the business processes, but also incorporating the technology opportunities and solutions with those processes. Because you can bring in new technology, but if you do not change the way you work or the way the processes are managed, it's not as effective. And I will just note to looking forward, and we know what the past experience was, but looking forward, for example, some of the tools we put in place to date, from July of last year to June 30th of the fiscal year 25, we were able to prevent nearly $360 million in benefits, preventing benefits to be paid out by shutting down these ID schemes. And a lot of the tools that we have developed is related to our integrity dashboards, identifying fraudsters before the activity gets in our door, right, in the process. So that's one sign of accomplishment. As you and I had discussed with the performance audit and some of the release of that, there will be updates around that compliance audit and those things. But we have made progress in all the findings around that during that period as well. But I'll invite Mireya to share the actual, because one thing I know is a solution that gets to the core of the Department of Corrections with our APRIS solution, and I think that would be very helpful if, Mireya, if you would invite you to walk through that and how that works.
Thank you, Director and Senator. Good morning. Good morning to the committee. I believe the Director actually had a very comprehensive overview of the various integrity tools, but I would capstone it just to describe it as we have a system of and we've been developing a system of complementary integrity tools and resources that are both at the day-to-day staff level as well as drawing on nationally available resources such as the nationally run Integrity Data Hub. What this means is that we are able to pull files, pull reports, and apply monitoring in order to do exactly what the Director referenced, which is prevent payments from leaving the agency and prevent and disrupt fraud schemes that intend to defraud the UI system. So specifically with regards to incarcerated individuals, we not only have continue to use the APRIS system, which addresses state and local incarcerated individuals. It's a cross-match. But we have also now brought online the federal PUPS system. So that allows us to also cross-match into individuals who are federally incarcerated.
And has that been helpful in collecting benefits that may have already been paid inappropriately?
So again, the large gain for us and what we definitely value, as well as collecting overpayments, but we definitely value preventing the payments from leaving.
Moving forward, I get that.
So moving forward. So yes, to answer your question, yes, it has been very helpful. In describing this to you as complementary, what we have found is having these additional tools allow us to not only gain new information, but also cross-match against the existing tools that we have. It reinforces, specifically with the PUP system, it reinforces that we have in fact been able to prevent many of these claims from actually proceeding to payment. So it is it's increasing our robust efforts for fraud detection and prevention.
Okay, and like I said, I want to try to make this as brief as I can, but so how much have you been able to recover of what was viewed as fraudulent excess? Let's start with that one.
All right, and I'll ask Brett here in a minute, but I think if you're talking numbers to date from the PUA, which was, as we have discussed previously, which taxpayer money is taxpayer money, but the federal program, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, was 95% of the schemes and ID theft that we all experienced. To date, Illinois actually leads the recovery in that effort of recovering approximately $200 million, and Brett will clean up any of my numbers, but $200 million. I think the next state is Ohio at $70 million. So we've made progress there. Last year alone, in our recovery efforts, we have collected $159 million. I think and I'll turn to you, Brett, to kind of break down, but just at a high level, some of the dollars, to your point, Senator, of what we've recovered and recouped to this point. Brett, I'll ask you to share, please. Our CFO.
Thank you, and thank you, members of the committee. In total, since fiscal year 2021 through December of 2025, we've recovered $713.2 million back, and we are still actively working with law enforcement and with the federal OIG, and we are still expecting to get back significant chunks of additional funds that were fraudulently paid out during the pandemic.
Great. That's really good to hear based on the numbers that were coming out the first couple of years after the whole pandemic, so I appreciate that very much. Any handle on how many cases have actually been turned over to the Attorney General's office for prosecution in the event where you haven't been able to put a handle on some of these past claims? Or
I'll again ask Mireya, but I know we've just recently referred 30 criminal cases, which I think have gone to try legal system, but I'll share. I invite the team here to weigh in because they're doing the work around this and day to day, and her team and what we've done. And when I mentioned in my comments earlier about the cultural change, the encouragement and feedback post-pandemic to look at things innovatively and empower our workforce to know they're supported to do their jobs and train and have the tools and ability to optimize their work. That's really our goal. But I will ask Mireya to kind of highlight that as well, please.
Thank you. So certainly we definitely want to pursue criminal investigations and criminal prosecution. The director is correct at about 30 cases, which that number just reflects the amount of detail that goes into turning over a very robust referral to both the OIG as well as the Attorney General. But in addition to criminal prosecutions, we do average anywhere between 600 to 800 civil cases that we do refer to the Illinois Attorney General. So we are working to exhaust all of our law enforcement connections and collaborations in order to refer as many cases as possible.
And do you have any idea how many of those 600 to 800 cases the Attorney General has actually engaged in to pursue?
We can get that information for you.
That would be helpful. I appreciate the responses. It's great to hear these numbers are rising drastically with regards to recovery of what are clearly not only criminal events, but mostly felony-level criminal events based on the dollars that are involved. You know, everybody would say, well, it's not really our money, it's federal money that was funding this program. That's nonsense. And I hate hearing it on a regular basis. The people paying their taxes into the state of Illinois are the same people paying their taxes into the federal government. This is our money. I don't care where it came from, it's our money. And I think it's important to maintain pressure on those agencies and those offices responsible for recovering, for whatever reason, these illegal benefits that were paid out. So I really appreciate the improvement that's been made here at IDES. Thank you for all your good work, and let's see if we can get it over $1 million next year, or $100 million next year.
We're working. Thank you,
very
Senator.
much. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator DeWitt. Director, let me ask a little bit about, because we've worked over the last couple of years to build up the health of the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. What can you talk a little about the health of our fund and then compare it to states of similar size or similar size funds?
Sure, thank you, Chairman. Well, as today happy to report that our trust fund is healthy. And also to note, I think as I shared with you as well, as of today, April 1st, April Fool's Day, the first quarter receipts is closing, so we will be expecting collecting the contributions for the first quarter, which is typically the largest contribution collection of our cycle. So we'll have a better handle on the balance upcoming, because we're in the period of that process. But so maybe in June we'll have the updated balance. But it is solvent. To add to that, not just the note about where we are in collections, but our contributions, is that our modeling and forecasting for the trust fund and the health of the trust fund maintains its all the modeling that we have done to this point. There's nothing to report differently on that front as we sit here today. Also, I know we shared some information, but Illinois, we're the largest labor force in our region, and when you compare it to our other states, we perform above or better as those sister states in comparison. So that's really the state of the state is where it is today. I don't know if there's anything else you would like me to expand on, but that's
no.
kind of
I mean, I think it's important for all of us to note the work that we have done, particularly to stabilize that fund, but also to make sure from both business and labor's perspective how the health of that fund contributes and makes sure it protects our workforce, which is our most valuable asset. So I think it's important, with that being one of the single greatest things that the department is responsible for your work for, to make sure we have that discussion.
Absolutely. We are the stewards, to your point. And I should note, and again, a thank you, because as you know, we have repaid back, and some time ago, 2 fiscal cycles, repaid back the loan. The trust fund is solvent. And we continue out of the partnership and work in the leadership with the governor and the General Assembly. We are making our payments. We've made 2 payments. I think we're scheduled for our 3rd payment to the stabilization rainy day fund. So that remains on track. $445 million to GRF. So that's also an addition. But I mentioned that because you referenced the work that the General Assembly and the governor and our stakeholders. IDS is a resource. We are here to support and play a role, not only as the stewards of the trust fund, but also the process, and work with stakeholders, everyone at the table that are like-minded, and we share that responsibility, and that's our role in this process. So we take that seriously, Chairman, and appreciate that opportunity to mention that.
Thank you so much for that, Director. Could you also talk a little bit, jump to another subject, and that's the EDP expansions. Could you talk through the work you are doing with the various vendors to develop the automated business workflow system?
Sure. Mireya, would you like to, that's one of our priority flagship projects. I think it really summarizes our efforts. Thank you, Mireya.
Thank you, Chairman, for the question. So this is under the umbrella of our modernization, continuous modernization efforts. And the purpose of robotic process automation or is to improve our document management process. This is of a benefit, not only in increasing efficiencies within the department, but it also goes to improving the claimant experience, ensuring that documents and information that we've requested that they are submitting to the department is processed in an expedient manner, and it resolves whatever the issue might be, the issue that may have arisen with their claim. So this project itself is in collaboration with our partners at Do It. We have been able to implement robotic process automation, which expands the categories of documents that can be uploaded electronically to the department in order to aid the processing of claims.
Thank you for that. I mean, again, I think it's important to note for the record the progress that's being made and the investments being made to improve those workflow processes. I don't see any other questions. Director, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to having additional discussions with you and the team.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Members, we will now move to Senate Bill 4081, the Judicial Inquiry Board. Executive Director Michael Dino, Executive Director and General Counsel Michael Dino. And as the director makes his way, I would note a good Illinois State man as well. Director, floor is yours.
Thank you. Go Redbirds, I'll say. I'll be brief in my comments. My name is Michael Dino. I'm the Executive Director and General Counsel for the Judicial Inquiry Board. Along with me here today is Charmaine Adams, who is our Administrative Assistant. The Judicial Inquiry Board is a constitutionally created board. We are the sole authority that investigates, charges, and prosecutes complaints of judicial misconduct and or judicial physical or mental disability by sitting Illinois state court judges. In a typical year, we process approximately 500 to 600 complaints. The last fiscal year, we processed over 550 complaints. And in this current year, I anticipate that we should have between 650 and 700 complaints processed by the end of the fiscal year. The appropriation that we are seeking this year is the same appropriation that we sought last year. We believe that that appropriation will be sufficient enough for us to carry out our responsibilities. And as I said, that kind of sums it up for us. That's my opening statement. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have for us.
Thank you, Director. I think you did such a great job outlining the request for the year. I don't see any questions. It was probably that Redbird comment, that go bird at the outset.
So.
I think that's what did it. Thank you, Director. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Same here. Thank you.
Members, we will next move to Senate Bill 4124, Commission on Equity and Inclusion, presented by Executive Director Alexandria Wilson and her team. Director, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Sims and the committee members for the opportunity to testify before you this morning. I am Alexandria Wilson, and I serve as the Executive Director for the Commission on Equity and Inclusion. Today, I am joined by my Chief of Staff, Robin Streets, Chief of HR and Finance, Tracy Kinney, External and Internal Communications and Legislative Affairs Officer, Nikita Richards, our Business Enterprise Program Deputy Director over Certification and the Mentor Protege Program, Latasha Binder, and our Deputy Director over the Business Enterprise Program Compliance and the Veterans Business Program, Jacob Perez. We are also joined by two of our commissioners. Our budget appropriations request for fiscal year 27 is $5,596,500. CEI continues to advance supplier diversity, equity, and inclusion through impactful programs such as the Business Enterprise Program and the Veterans Business Program. In fiscal year 2025, state spending with BEP certified vendors and sheltered workshops amounted to over $1.6 billion, marking a 30% increase from the previous fiscal year and an over 39% increase from the fiscal year 2022, which marks CEI's inaugural fiscal year overseeing the Business Enterprise Program. CEI also facilitated over $67 million in state contracts for VBP certified vendors. Demonstrating its commitment to empowering diverse businesses, CEI supported over 1,400 BEP certified vendors in securing state contracts in FY25. Purchasing entities subject to CEI supplier diversity oversight reported that over half of the BEP certified vendor pool had active state contracts in FY25. Additionally, there were 267 active contracts with VBP goals. In FY25, CEI Certification Unit reviewed over 5,000 initial and renewal certification applications, and CEI's current average amount of time to approve full BEP certification applications is 46 days, 12 days fewer than the 60 days required by administrative rule. CEI is continuing its certification outreach with the launch of our targeted Certify and Thrive campaign. It is a major agency-wide effort to grow our vendor pools. Meanwhile, this fiscal year, the Compliance Unit has completed over 200 utilization plan reviews, conducted over 100 goal waiver reviews, reviewed over 500 exemption requests, and reviewed nearly 600 goal-setting forms. We are working diligently to ensure that goal setting, waiver reviews, and exemption requests are consistently handled by purchasing entities by finalizing updated forms, manuals, and training for U plans, goal setting, waivers, exemptions, and contract monitoring. As of March 31st, we've completed 40 outreach events and workshops and 39 virtual office hours, totaling 88 outreach efforts in FY26. CEI has produced a procurement scorecard, supplier diversity training, BEP and VBP expenditure reports, and analyses on race and gender wage comparisons, contract extensions and renewals, and goal waivers and exemptions. CEI commissioners serve as extensions of operations and fulfill their responsibilities under the Illinois Procurement Code, which includes 14-day waiver reviews, contract award notice reviews, and vendor conflicts of interest submitted by purchasing entities. And while we take pride in the progress made since CEI's inception, we remain dedicated to our pursuit of improvement. By fostering collaboration and upholding a shared commitment to this mission, we are confident in our ability to create lasting, transformative change that benefits the entire Illinois procurement landscape. We value your attention and welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director. Senator Rose.
Thank you, Director, for being here. I've got some concerns. And it starts with the fact that you're one of the highest paid commissioners in the state, not you personally, but the whole commission. And it's a part-time appointment. In fact, other commissions that pay this much money are typically required to work full-time. But yet we've gone, as you noted, like 5,400 certified businesses. Over a year ago, we're down to 2,800. So, respectfully, on the face of it, the commission is charged with all these things that you just talked about, but we've lost half of our vendors, and yet you're some of the highest paid people in the state. How do we get this ship righted? What needs to be done differently? What are we doing wrong to have this outcome?
To your first point, commissioner compensation is set by General Assembly in statute and not by CEI. And our commissioners perform mandated oversight functions that directly affect billions in state contracting. To your question about the certified vendor pool, we also see that as something that we are trying to rectify. We have been doing a lot of outreach over 88 this fiscal year to ensure that vendors still see the value of supplier diversity, still see the value of trying to get contracts with the state, which is why we launched our Certify and Thrive campaign to really focus on getting outreach out there to the business communities to ensure that our vendor pools continue to grow. But despite the decrease in vendor pool, achievement is still increasing and moving in the right direction.
Senator Rose, you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How did 400 people that were previously qualified no longer qualified? Were they fraudulent?
When you say people, 400 people, are you speaking of vendors?
5,400. We had 5,400 entities that were previously qualified, and now we're down to 2,800. So did these people just retire? Did they go out of business? Were they fraudulent? I mean, I mean, I have a hard time really thinking that we lost half of our people literally overnight. How does that happen?
I will direct this question to our Deputy Director over Certification, Latasha Binder.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. So there are a couple key contributing factors that led to the reduction of certified firms. One was the transition to a new supplier diversity management portal. This portal required vendors to manually update their information due to changes in system integrations. While this represented a shift from prior automated processes, vendors were supported throughout the transition. Additionally, there have been delays in procedural changes among recognition certification host agencies, most notably City of Chicago, Cook County, not to mention the national shifts in reciprocity and certification standards, and specifically the DBE program, which no longer considers race or gender. So those things have a cumulative effect that lead to things sometimes being difficult for small, diverse businesses to navigate. And again, despite these challenges, the certification unit took proactive measures to enhance vendor engagement and support to maintain the integrity and accessibility of the program.
So just to follow this theme, so we've lost 2,600 vendors in a year. When the computer program went online, how many of the vendors migrated? Did 100% of vendors migrate over? Or were there additional requirements placed upon them? And was it an automatic migration? Or do they additionally have to do other, paperwork, certifications? verifications to just get how many made it through the computer migration?
So I don't have an exact number for that, but if they were active in the system at the time, they were successfully migrated over. Some of the loss would have happened during renewals, and specifically those that had to renew from a recognition partner. Again, it was a more automated process when the systems were shared with those partners, but the new supplier diversity management portal gave way to more manual processes that vendors then had to participate in.
I'm.
That.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. This particular supplier diversity management system was a system that CEI inherited. It was a vendor who won the contract through a competitive bid process, and we have made every progressive, supportive measure to make sure that vendors were aware of the change, that they were aware of instructions to update their information. We sent out communications monthly, held in FY25 48 virtual office hours where our certification staff would help walk anyone that needed help through the new system. We hit the street with outreach to be in person to assist with any difficulties with the system. So we took all proactive measures to make sure that this transition would go as smooth as possible, and did the best that we could with what we were provided.
So according to news accounts covering our commission meetings, the computer change happened in July of 2024, which is well before the federal requirements changed. And that's when this slide started. I guess I can leave it at this. And by the way, this is not, I don't think it's fair to say that this community can't figure out the rules. I quite frankly think nobody can figure out the rules. The state of Illinois has simply made it too hard to do business with the state of Illinois. And that's not a question addressed to you. It's an observation based upon the numerous vendors of all shapes and sizes that simply cannot make it through the paperwork to get qualified. It doesn't shock me one bit that we do a computer migration and we lose almost half of our people. I mean, that's insane. And at the end of the day, it's a shame for the businesses that are losing opportunity, but it's also bad for the taxpayers because we're not getting the cheapest price for the products we're buying and the services we're purchasing because we don't have a truly competitive marketplace. It's just insane. And I respectfully, the Prison Review Board and other boards making this amount of money are full-time gigs. And if it takes making this a full-time gig to get this figured out, maybe that's what needs to happen. You're right to point out, ma'am, and your point is well taken, and that's a legislative policy. The salaries are set, but again, this is crazy. And to lose, we've lost 2,600 vendors. And by the way, I've got numerous folks in my district that have tried time and again to get qualified. I've seen some of the most horrendous acts of stupidity by state government, refusing to qualify people who should absolutely have been qualified. But I'll leave it at that. This really needs to be fixed, and if it means making you guys full-time employees, I think maybe that's what it needs to happen, because 150 grand a year to lose 2,600 vendors. It's just unacceptable.
And I would like to say, Senator, for those businesses who are struggling to get BEP or VBP certified within your district, please send them our way so that we can work them through the certification process step by step. We do have to follow, the BEP Act, so they do have to qualify as a minority-owned, person with disability-owned, woman-owned, or vet-owned firm. But, if they do qualify, we're happy to walk them through every step of the process.
Right. It was, I'll tell you, I had one. It was a female-owned business, and she came out of logistics, a transportation company. She came out of logistics, very accomplished, in her field, and decided to start her own trucking company. And as anyone knows, business is just the deployment of capital, for profit, right? And so she was organizing the contracts, getting the drivers. She was doing everything except driving the truck. And even though she was deploying, 10, 20, 30 drivers all over the United States of America, because she herself didn't have a CDL, even though she owned the businesses, she was denied certification. That's crazy. That's absolutely a business. She's absolutely engaged in business. She's absolutely engaged in commerce. It was so disrespectful, sexist, and all the other ists to tell her that she didn't qualify when that was her life's profession. She was just deploying the capital in a different way than what people were expecting when it says trucking, right? She was the one going out and getting the contracts to truck. And yet, because she wasn't the one driving, she was denied. That's nuts. That's not even, and that's just so far. I mean, sometimes I don't think government actually understands what business is at all. You had another one, lady built the thing from the bottom up, and it was an LLC. Her husband had a full-time job, but because of generally accepted accounting practices, and he was also on the check, because you have to have two parties to sign a check over a certain amount. They denied her because he had to, countersign a check over whatever. Well, whatever is a GAAP acceptable practice. It's a totally ridiculous decision for that family, and for this woman who it was a cleaning business, and she took it from basically cleaning houses into being, a massive cleaning conglomerate where they're doing insurance, post catastrophe insurance remediation, mold remediation, fires, all that stuff. But because her husband, on checks over a certain amount, was required to countersign, they denied her application. Just insane, absolutely insane. So I'm sorry, I'm done, but thank you.
And if those were BEP certified firms or firms trying to become BEP certified, there are some control and ownership requirements via statute and rule. But I would love to talk.
They met those. I mean, all the LLC paperwork had the right percentages, blah, 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 blah. And that's why it was so silly. I mean, and the trucking lady, I mean, my goodness, she was leading one of the biggest logistics companies in North America, and, got married and came back to Illinois to start a company on the side while she's raising her kids. But because she wasn't driving the truck herself, I mean, it's insane. She was doing millions of dollars of business around the United States, and she can't do business in the state of Illinois. Just nuts. So thanks.
Thank you, Senator Rose. Director, I think you've heard the frustration that Senator Rose just espoused, that we've talked about in this committee, and we have talked about with you and the commission over and over again. And it's the frustration that I think members on both sides of the aisle feel, that it is too difficult for businesses to do business with the state of Illinois. And when you have particularly Black firms, Latino firms, women-owned firms, veteran firms who are consistently saying that they can do business elsewhere, but they can't do business in Illinois, that is a problem. Now, I know you say we're heading in the right direction, but I'm telling you that business owners that we are talking to are not saying that. They are not saying we're heading in the right direction. They're not saying that things are looking better. They're saying consistently things are looking worse. Now, I know you and the team are doing, are attempting to do great work on outreach, et cetera. I'm telling you that it is not translating to businesses. And this is a constant refrain. It is consistent. I don't care if you are in Chicago. I don't care if you are in central Illinois. I don't care if you are in southern Illinois. I don't care if you're in northern Illinois. It is a consistent refrain across the state and is particularly challenging for businesses of color. That is, again, we're going to continue to have these discussions, but to say that we're moving in the right direction, I can tell you that the businesses in the district I represent, that's not what they're saying. I don't see any other questions. Director, thank you so much for you and your team for being here. Members having no further business coming before the Senate Appropriations Committee. Committee stands adjourned.
Good afternoon, everyone. Could the members that are on virtually please indicate if you can hear?
Can hear, thanks.
Excellent. The Senate Appropriations Health and Human Service Committee will come to order. Before we take the
Arellano, yes.
Pursuant to Rule 3-2, I hereby appoint Senator L.G. Sims to temporarily replace Senator Julie Morrison as a member of the Senate Appropriations Health and Human Services Committee. This appointment will expire upon adjournment of the Senate. Signed, Don Harmon. And Mr. Secretary, pursuant to Rule 3-5C, I hereby temporarily appoint Senator Seth Lewis to replace Senator Andrew Chesney as a member of the Senate Appropriations Health and Human Services Committee. This appointment is effective April 1st and will expire upon adjournment of the committee. Signed, John Curran. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senator McClure? Senator Harris? Senator Lewis?
Here. Present. Harris is present.
Thank you. Senator Ariano?
Here.
Senator Severson?
Here.
Senator Villablam?
Here.
Senator Villa?
Present.
Senator Simmons? Senator Sims?
Present.
Senator Hunter? Senator Guzman?
Present.
Senator Collins?
Present.
Senator Kaler?
Present.
Chair Aquino.
For the record, there are 10 committee members present. They're being quorummed. The following credentials media seeks leave. Actually, I don't think I see anything. Paul. Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon. Let's do that over. The following credentialed media seeks leave of the body to take audio and video recording. Paul Elders from Blue Room Stream. Seeing no objection, orders leave is granted. And today we will hear subject matter testimony on the following bills. Senate Bill 4101, which is the budget for the Illinois Department of Human Services. Senate Bill 4093, budget for the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services. Senate Bill 4109, which is the budget for the Illinois Department of Public Health. And Senate Bill 4125, which is the budget for the Illinois Guardianship and Advocacy Commission. We will also be hearing the following legislative measures as subject matter. Senate Bill 2742, Senate Bill 3787, Senate Bill 3587, Senate Bill 3754, Senate Bill 2969, Senate Bill 3532, and Senate Bill 3165. The following legislative measures are being held today, which is Senate Bill 2814, Senate Bill 3167, Senate Bill 3462, and Senate Bill 2900. First order of business is we are going to move towards our budget-related bills with subject matter on Senate Bill 4101, the Illinois Department of Human Services budget request. If Secretary Quintero and her guests can please come up to the podium. Secretary, the floor is yours.
Hello, it is wonderful to be with you all today. Thank you, Chairperson Senator Aquino and Vice Chair Senator Kaler, for your guidance and leadership. I also want to thank Minority Spokesperson Senator Severson. The commitment of each and every esteemed senator here today is an inspiration. Here at IDHS, we assist Illinois residents along a continuum of care. IDHS services touch 1 in 3 Illinoisans at some point in their lives. Last year, we invested millions to support food access during the federal shutdown, which disrupted SNAP benefits for 1.9 Illinois residents. We partner with community organizations to create Illinois Immigration Information Hub, providing Know Your Rights Toolkit, and operating a 24/7 hotline. We bolstered support and stabilization for individuals residing in community settings, including de-escalation training given to 118 providers serving individuals with high behavioral support needs. As you're all aware, FY26 and FY27 have been met with significant budget pressures caused by policy changes from the federal government. These pressures include impacts on H.R. 1 implementation that require additional state investments to address SNAP and Medicaid requirement. Additionally, the uncertainty of federal funding around TANF block grant and social services block grant jeopardizes $643 million of federal funding that help the most vulnerable. The federal funding of the Child Care Development Fund is also at risk, putting up $1 billion in potential lost federal funds. To address these budget pressures, we are responding by identifying $119 million FY26 reserves and $50 million via program reductions in the FY27 budget. The FY26 reserves were based on historical lapsing funds. No committed funds were reduced to meet the reserves. Before I get into the FY27 overall IDHS budget, I want to point out that there are also some changes to the programs that IDHS will be operating in FY27. The Division of Early Childhood, which operated under IDHS umbrella in FY26, is now included in the Illinois Department of Early Childhood for FY27 budget. Another change is planned to move the comprehensive community-based youth services. The grant program is intended to be transferred to DCFS for FY27 in natural addition to their portfolio. The materials you have received pull these programs out of the FY26 and FY27 amounts. Now onto the numbers. The FY27 general revenue budget has a 5.9 increase over the FY26 projected spending. The FY9 increase includes $388 million new GRF dollars and a small decrease in federal funds. The federal funds reduction is due to exhausted appropriations for ARPA funding. We're also growing our headcount to account for the federal SNAP and Medicaid changes and the expansions of the forensic capacity within our Division of Behavioral Health and Recovery. Our proposal budget includes over $276 million investments to support compliance with OMSID programs and consent decrees. These includes $148.8 million in funding for the LIGA's consent decree, so more individuals have access to critical services they need to thrive. This funding also supports a 60-cent per hour rate increase for direct support professionals and the implementation of the zero-hour model for SILAs, which adding staffing support for SILA residents are at home. These investments will allow individuals with disabilities to remain in their own homes through our home services program. The proposed budget strengthens our commitments to community supports so individuals with disabilities can lead full, healthy lives in the environments of their choice. The governor's budget proposal also invests in IDHS commitment to reducing the SNAP payment error rate. This includes $40 million to hire 450 new caseworkers to invest in needed IT infrastructure and automate income eligibility verification. This investment will drive us forward in preventing the loss of over $700 million of federal revenue that supports SNAP benefits. Now getting into the divisions of IDHS. First, the Division of Mental Health and the Division of Substance Use Prevention and Recovery fully integrated into the Division of Behavioral Health and Recovery. The DBHR budget reflects a new investment to increase forensic capacity at our state-operated psychiatric hospitals with an investment of $34.5 million, adding more than 150 beds to the system. And as highlighted before, the budget supports additional funding to comply with the Colbert and Williams consent decrees. For the Division of Developmental and Disabilities, the proposed budget of $33.9 million for new adult PUNS placements. There is an investment of $13.3 million for home-based programs. As mentioned before, IDHS will make continued progress in the implementation of Guidehouse recommendations. Changes will be effective January 2027. The proposed division of Family and Community Services budget includes $115 million of funding for the Reimagined Public Safety Program to maintain current program expenditure levels. We also see a $253.7 million of funding for the Home Illinois program to maintain the FY26 estimated program expenditure levels. And last but not least, the Division of Rehabilitation Services, $109 million of new investments is needed in home services program to address an anticipated growth of an additional 1,300 new customers. Before we get to your questions, I would like to end by sharing the story of one of the people we served. Jessica has 3 children and was residing in an emergency shelter when she applied for the Rapid Rehousing Program in April 2024. Through the support of shelter case managers and housing navigators, she secured safe and stable housing for herself and her family. Having stable housing led Jessica shift from crisis response to long-term planning. She increased her income and managed her finances carefully, allowing her to pay off her debts and achieve financial independence. Today, through her hard work and the IDHS support, Jessica is now able to pay 100% of her rent without assistance. Her daughters are thriving in school, and she's actively working towards her next goal, purchasing a home with her grandmother. Jessica's story is emblematic of the work IDHS does to uplift all Illinoisans. In the interest of time, I will pause here. I look forward to hearing for your input and fielding your questions along with my colleagues, my fiscal leads, Adam Morrow and Joe Welba next to me right here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Secretary. Before we go to questions from our committee members, there was an organization, IRF, who signed up for oral testimony, and so I'll allow for, if you have someone who wants to come up, do your testimony now, and then we'll shoot to questions from the committee members right afterwards. And as you know, please introduce yourself and who you're with and begin your testimony. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I am Josh Evans, and I work on behalf of community-based providers serving and supporting children and adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. By way of context into our position with respect to the budget, I wanted to spend a few seconds or more talking about something that's been important and referenced by the Secretary, and that's the landmark Guidehouse rate study that was published in 2020. This was published in response to the federal courts determining that Illinois was out of the Ligas consent decree, which had been in place since 2011. And so the department worked with the community to develop a report on how to properly invest in existing services and supports to stabilize our system. It initially called for a $329.5 million investment if all recommendations are implemented year one, and over the timeline as projected by the rate study consultants would have amounted to approximately $744 million increase in IDD services in Illinois. Fiscal year 27 would be the first year beyond the initial 5-year arc of the Guidehouse rate study. And as we sit here today, there are approximately 3 elements of that rate study that remain unfunded. However, the good news is that we have made significant progress in Illinois since the first year of the published rate study and investing particularly in our workforce. And I have written testimony that I have submitted, but one of the things that I don't often get a chance to do is usually it's talking about where things are not working and why more needs to be done. Today, I'd just like to spend a moment to say things are working, and we hope that you'll continue in your support and investment in the rate study. Illinois has seen direct support professional wages increase by 68% since 2017, and that's according to a national report. Illinois is one of 26 states that participates in the NCI State of the Workforce Survey. And so we're second to all states in the Midwest in terms of where we stand on average DSP wages. Our vacancy rate for direct support professionals is down to 9.2%, and that's from a high of approximately 17%. And I think this is the first year since we've participated in that study that Illinois is below the national average. Turnover remains at approximately 41%. That's something that's an issue that can't be addressed specifically by wages, but wages is a big component. So I want to express my thanks to this committee in particular, to members of the Senate writ large, to the General Assembly and the administration, because we can cleanly track where increased wages are having a stabilizing effect on our workforce. That said, I want to come here today to say that we do support several elements of the department's proposed budget. We are in full support of what was mentioned, the 60-cent an hour increase to the direct support professional wage rate as determined by implementation by the department, which would be 100% of that going to the DSP workforce. 50% or 30 cents would go to every single direct support professional in the state, with the remaining 30 cents to be used by service providers to flexibly address recruitment and retention. We also support the division's proposed in addressing the 0-hour implementation, which essentially ensures that there's funding for 24 hours of staff support in group homes in the state of Illinois. And we continue to work with the department and have conversations on how that implementation would be done, but I can please to say that we're making progress and things stand good to go in that direction. So at this time, we thank the department, we thank the governor for the proposal. We stand in full support of those elements and hope that as you deliberate on the final budget, you can see your way to including those elements in the final budget. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And with discussion, Senator Lewis with questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate you recognizing. Director, I have some concerns. Two major ones that really bother me: fraud and poor customer service and mismanagement. So let me ask about the overall arching issue of fraud. And you're good with me, Josh. Go ahead. So it appears it has taken an act from the federal government to threaten this department in the state of Illinois with correcting ineligible SNAP recipients and error rates. And if I heard you correctly, $40 million for 450 positions to maintain $700 million in federal funding. Now, when it comes to the ineligible or error rates, which were last reported at 15%, plus I understand things may be improving, but those error rates cause monies to be given to those who are ineligible and don't deserve by statute. And in an era of extremely tight resources, why has it taken the federal government to threaten us with removing monies for your department to act to correct this problem?
Thank you so much, Senator, for your question. The payment error rate is being used by the federal government as a measure to shift food benefit costs off the federal budget onto the state budgets. Historically, the